Hello, national readers. Thank you so much for joining us this evening. We are very excited to be launching our new podcast studio, which we're hoping to very soon be podcasting 3 evenings a week from. So you'll be able to hear us talking about all of the big stories, all the behind the scenes information about how we worked on them. And you'll be hearing from me, editor of the National, Laura Webster, and various reporters and editors here at the newspaper. Today, I'm joined by Laura Pollock, who is a multimedia reporter and also does a lot to do with our social media. And I'm joined by Xander Elliott, who is our content editor and also does quite a lot of political reporting these days. So thank you so much for joining me today.
No problem.
Thought I would kick things off by showing the front page. This is today's copy of The National. These are a few stories that are in the paper today. So we got an exclusive interview with Zara Sultana, some really good lines from that. We've got a report on the first debate on digital ID, which was in Westminster Hall yesterday. And we've got this story about a UK minister saying that Scottish independence would only benefit Vladimir Putin. So what's the story?
Well, what's the story? Is this news, or is it just kind of the same story from 10 years ago again? A UK minister, Luke Pollard, Labour Defence Minister, has said that independence would benefit Putin, be a win for Putin. It really just feels like they're bringing out the same old kind of defence lines that we used to hear, and I'm just not sure it's going to fly with the public. Like, are Labour ministers seriously thinking that Vladimir Putin is counting on Scottish independence to get his goals? I don't really buy it. I don't know what your reaction to the story was.
Well, maybe, who knows? Maybe he's watching every indie paper launch. You never know. Who was it that called him crass?
I think it was the SNP.
Yeah,
It was
the
the
SNP in general.
Yeah, and I think that is pretty fair description.
So what Luke Pollard actually said was, I'll just read the quote out. He said, "The thing that Putin fears most about the UK is our nuclear deterrent. So why make the argument that gives Putin a win, that removes jobs and makes Britain less secure?" Well, for a start, does he really think that what Putin fears most about the UK is our nuclear weapons? Like, Vladimir Putin's got 4,500 off the top of my head. Let me get the numbers up. He's got 4,299 nuclear weapons which are ready for use, according to the most recent report from the Nuclear Weapons Ban Monitor. That is 4,000 more than the UK has. So I suspect if it comes to nuclear deterrence, the Russian deterrent is much stronger than the UK deterrent in that way. Realistically, nuclear weapons, it's the US versus Russia. Everyone else has hundreds. They have thousands upon thousands.
Yeah, absolutely. And like you say, it's a story that's been around a while. And I think maybe the unionist camp haven't quite updated their tactics in sense of the UK population, not just the Scottish population. We're all so much more aware of the facts now compared to 2014. We know how to spot a bad SNP bad or some sort of story that goes out through those sort of lines. So this just does feel very outdated.
It's a bit rich of Westminster ministers to be getting on who is going to be helping Putin and all of this stuff. When we had that report into Russian interference in UK elections back in 2020, I think they finally published it after a lot of dithering and delay. And the report found that they couldn't conclude whether or not Russia had interfered in elections like the referendum because the government hadn't bothered to investigate, hadn't asked the security services to investigate. So whether or not these assertions that Luke Pollard's making about what Putin wants and what Putin fears is actually based on any evidence at all, I highly doubt it. It seems like ministers aren't overly interested in actually interrogating Russian interference in UK politics at all. Just the other day, we had the former leader of Nigel Farage's Reform UK in Wales. He's due to be jailed in the coming weeks, I think, for taking bribes to push the Russian agenda. Where's the concern about that? Like, what does Putin want? Putin wants Nigel Farage in power, I imagine, because he's the one that's got allies promoting Russia. I mean, yeah, I just think it stinks. It stinks of an opportunistic attack with a not serious politics this party that said they were going to be the grown-ups in the room and all of this rubbish.
Well, you mentioned it was the report or the Russia report.
Yeah, the Russia report.
I'm going to say that again. You mentioned the Russia report there, and I mean, that's back in the news today. I don't know if you've seen the story, but Alan Smith, Caroline Lucas, a series of other former MPs are referring their case to the Grand Chamber of the European Court of Human Rights, and basically accusing the UK government of not taking its responsibility to protect the elections from foreign interference seriously. It's been a case since, I think, 2020. It was first referred to one of the courts in the UK, and now it's going up the chain. And the Grand Chamber is the sort of highest human rights court in Europe. And so they're really determined to get a response on that. But it's interesting that that's not a story we're hearing very much about. But then you've got this defense minister just saying whatever he thinks about Putin and independence, and it has made quite a big splash in the Scottish media today. I think it would be fair to say.
It's just one of those kind of stories everybody's going to click on to see who's saying that again. It's just red meat for the unionist cause. That it's really just a bit of nonsense. But it's interesting that what you're saying about the Russia report being back in the news, because there just hasn't been any impetus from the UK government to actually prevent foreign interference in UK elections. We got a few whispers months ago now, a year ago, when there was rumours that Elon Musk might give Nigel Farage 100 million. Suddenly they were like, oh, we might have to ban foreign donations into UK politics because that sounds scary. And Elon Musk now working with Tommy Robinson and his
allegedly, according to Tommy Robinson.
No, according to Elon Musk,
really?
turning up at Tommy Robinson's free speech parade, whatever the hell it was, in London in September. Elon Musk is openly speaking at these far-right rallies, openly sowing discontent in UK politics.
Of course, I was only saying this because I think it's not confirmed that he's been paying Tommy Robinson's legal fees. That's a claim that Tommy Robinson's made.
Yeah, whether or not he's paying, it's undeniable the two are working together.
Oh, of course.
I mean, you go on Twitter with a relatively blank account, doesn't look at anything for you, and it's all these guys with fake profile pictures of, I don't know, like Michelangelo's David or something, claiming to defend Western values. It's just ridiculous. It's just Tommy Robinson's website now that him and Elon Musk are working together, and the UK government is completely disinterested. Actual foreign interference in UK politics, it does not care. It's purely for its own political purposes.
Well, that's a great segue, because Tommy Robinson in Israel. Let's talk about the whole Maccabi situation. So this has been going on for several days now. I think it started last Friday, really, was when things kicked off. Just to give you guys a recap, it came out that the authorities in the West Midlands had decided that the Maccabi Tel Aviv fans wouldn't be allowed to come over to the UK for the game with Aston Villa. Basically, a whole range of concerns, including sort of security issues. And the Prime Minister responded to that by saying it was unacceptable, it was wrong.
And said it was anti-Semitism.
Yeah, said it was anti-Semitism. It became this big political row. The Conservatives have made a lot of political kind of hay from it, arguing that anti-Semitism is just exploding across the UK. And then today we've had this report in The Guardian, which we've followed up, saying that actually the security and intelligence information was that there was basically serious risk from some of the Maccabi Tel Aviv fans. Do you want to talk about that, Sander?
I mean, yeah, just we skimmed over that bit with Keir Starmer calling the decision anti-Semitism to ban Maccabi Tel Aviv fans from this Aston Villa match. I think that really shows, as we were just saying, how this Labour government are happy to use any terms. Oh, Putin would love that. Oh, that's anti-Semitism. But they're not really serious about it. If I was the Prime Minister of the United Kingdom and I genuinely believed that an anti-Semitic decision had been made by West Midlands Police, I would launch a full inquiry. How was this decision made? How has anti-Semitism infected one of our major police services? Birmingham's the second biggest city in the UK, isn't it? It's outrageous, that would be. I would expect a full public inquiry into anti-Semitism in the West Midlands. The Prime Minister knows it's not an anti-Semitic decision. He knows that it was made based on security advice. So they're not going to hold any such inquiry, because it would find that everything he said was untrue. But it just shows how deeply unserious these people are. You can't throw around anti-Semitism, which is a really serious accusation of a really serious issue, and then be like, "Oh, we're not going to investigate it." Why not? Why not? It's not on. It's not on.
No, it's been really shocking. And I mean, even last night, I don't know if you saw the clip, Sky News basically saying, oops, we sort of reported on all of this, but it turned out there was a real concern from people who know what they're talking about, from the organizers of these kinds of events and these sporting situations and people who police them. They actually did have a point. And it was quite cringeworthy to watch, because I mean, we spoke to the photographer who filmed the Maccabi Tel Aviv fans last week. Well, we spoke to her last week, but she filmed them in Amsterdam last year, who found that she sold her footage to Reuters, saying this is Maccabi Tel Aviv fans attacking Dutch citizens, and then it emerged that it had been put out in certain media outlets as saying it was the opposite. It was the exact opposite.
Yeah, the BBC used that video. I think her name was Annette de Graaf, who'd filmed it and had gone public saying, "I filmed Maccabi Tel Aviv fans being violent in Amsterdam." The BBC were among the outlets to use her footage, but put on top of it commentary like Israeli fans have faced violence and attacks in Amsterdam as this match with Ajax or whatever it was. It took the BBC almost 2 months.
More than 40 days.
Yeah, to correct that.
Yeah.
Like, what are they playing at for a start? Like 45 days to investigate something that is there in front of your face. What are they doing? How does it take 45 days? I'd like one of those jobs. Thank you very much. That's a great deadline. But when they finally issued a correction on their BBC corrections and error page, saying, "Oh, we admit that we were wrong and this was blah, 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 blah," they didn't, A, put the correction on social media, which is where everybody saw their false reporting in the first place, and B, they didn't even remove the video they were apologising for. They only did that when I got in touch and said, "You've issued an error on your correction on your errors and corrections page. Shouldn't you also remove the video you're apologising for?" "Oh, yeah, maybe that would be a good idea." Like, what have you been doing for 45 days?
Yeah, yesterday Steph Payton had a column in our paper, and Steph said that Keir Starmer looks like the biggest fool right now because he branded, technically, he branded the whole Jewish community extremist because he correlated the two together with the Maccabi team and the fans themselves. And that's now what we're seeing with Lisa Nandy as well.
So we have a sports secretary who doesn't seem to know anything about football hooliganism. Sandra, don't you think that's an important part of her job?
I mean, it's frankly astonishing. Did anyone brief Lisa Nandy before she went out to Parliament yesterday? Like we said, the actual sports secretary, you expect her to have some knowledge of sport, like not even international, domestic. What did she say? I've got the quote. She said, "What is astonishing in this case," obviously the Maccabi Tel Aviv case, "is that it is unprecedented in modern times for all away fans to be banned because of the behaviour of a small minority." I couldn't even get through it. Unprecedented in modern times. Like, this week, Eintracht Frankfurt, I'm not a big football fan, I'll probably pronounce all these teams wrong, are going to Napoli. Their away fans are all banned. The 23-24 Scottish Premiership season, it was Celtic Rangers. They banned each other's away fans completely for the whole season. It overflowed either side of that as well. Legia Warsaw, when they played Aston Villa a couple of years ago, and there was violence outside the stadium in the same area, Midlands Police. That was so bad that they got given a 5-game ban for all of their away fans. Is Lisa Nandy living under a rock? Like, what is going on? I'm honestly shocked that she's sports secretary and this badly briefed. Like, somebody needs to come to Parliament and correct that statement at the very least. If I was her, I'd be firing people.
But you say she should fire people, but actually people are calling for her to stand down,
Yeah.
which I think is possibly it should happen.
Oh, good luck.
It's been really unusual to see how little the media has kind of jumped on Lisa Nandy basically misleading Parliament. I mean, I feel like a few years ago with the Nicola Sturgeon, Alex Salmond situation in Holyrood, every day was another story about Nicola misled Parliament. Did she mislead Parliament? Here's a poll on what people think about her misleading Parliament. Can you just mislead Parliament now and it's not really an issue?
You definitely can.
Well,
Zubir Ahmed misled Parliament a couple of weeks ago and has done absolutely nothing about it. In fact, since he misled Parliament, just to be clear, he misled Parliament over whether or not John Swinney had addressed that deal to build frigates on the Clyde. He repeatedly told MPs that there'd been radio silence, that Swinney had said nothing, the SNP had been silent, blah, 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 blah. Keir Starmer then echoed him and then had to apologise when it turned out that actually Swinney had addressed it. Zubir Ahmed, I got in contact a few times. Are you going to issue a correction? No, radio silence from him, ironically enough. In that period, since misleading Parliament and refusing to correct it, he's been promoted. He's now a health minister. So quite the opposite consequences.
And you could say the same about David Lammy. He misled Parliament, no? You did a lot of reporting on that.
Well,
no?
what did he mislead Parliament?
Did he not mislead Parliament over... He came and apologised. Do you remember?
Was that when he said he told Parliament that Israel had breached international law, and then he had to come,
then he had to come back.
Then he had to come back and say, actually, that's not in my remit to say. Even though courts have already decided that Israel is breaching international law, like you're allowed to say that.
You can maybe cut that. It's not a breach of Parliament, but
I feel like once upon a time, though, it would be a potential resigning offence or a sacking offence to be misleading Parliament like that. And now it's just like radio silence. It is quite surprising. Another story that I wanted to pick up on from today was something that you were covering this morning, Laura, and that's Donald Trump's visit to Scotland costing, well, a lot of money. I'll let you talk about that. And the fact that the UK government's saying, not our problem.
Yeah, so this is off the back of Shona Robinson has sent a letter to the UK Treasury. It's been months now where the UK government have been refusing to foot the bill for Donald Trump's visit to Scotland. Now, this wasn't an official state visit. The UK did not invite Donald Trump, which is where I think the difficulty is in actually finding out who is meant to foot the bill. Now, I sort of see both points, even though I understand. I know you don't. The debate is whether or not it was an invited thing. The UK said if we had invited him, we would foot this bill, which is £24.5 million. It's a lot of money. It paid for the police, it paid for the paramedics, a lot of the emergency services that were on standby in case of any kind of international incident. Scotland are saying the Treasury should pay for it. The UK Treasury says we're not going to do it. So there is a precedent. In 2018, the UK government did foot the bill because that was an official state visit. So I don't know. There's a bit of, they're at loggerheads at the moment. The Scottish government are saying it did have diplomatic significance. If a world leader just comes to Scotland and does all this stuff where the 4,000 police officers have to turn out on the streets, who pays for it? Does Scotland do the UK? It's a very difficult thing, and I understand why it's became this loggerheads debate situation. But I do think ultimately, even though there wasn't an official invite, I don't know about your holidays, but I don't meet with the Prime Minister, the First Minister, the European Commission, the President of the European Commission, Ursula von der Leyen. Trump was doing official business all throughout this holiday at Scotland. So
the Labour government were.
Yeah, they were talking about the trade deal and. There was so much.
Keir Starmer came up to Scotland, held a big press conference with Trump, got on his helicopter, flew over to Aberdeenshire. They all went to his opening. A lot of them. This wasn't a little family holiday for Trump to come and look at his new course on the site of special scientific interest.
No, it was an official state visit, all in but name. But I think actually the Scottish government probably should have covered their own back and made sure that it was defined as that, because should they not have foreseen this happening?
Well, I mean, apparently so. You would have thought that the UK government would have a bit more decorum and be like, oh, no, you're right. We did send the Scottish Secretary to greet him and we did send the Prime Minister to meet him. So maybe we could understand that it was a UK diplomatic visit. UK foreign policy is reserved until they choose that actually it's not. Scotland is not allowed any say in foreign policy. It should keep it in its box, and John Swinney shouldn't be meeting presidents and blah 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 blah. Until suddenly, you've got to pay £24.5 million for policing costs for a foreign visit. so is it devolved now? I'm a bit confused about where reserved and devolved lines are drawn. Honestly, it just seems like a fight the Treasury kind of trying to pick because they're saving every penny. But the irony of it, coming on the same day as Luke Pollard, that guy that made the Putin comparison, has said that the UK government will consider stepping in to fund Scottish colleges directly. So they're happy to go around devolution in education and directly fund educational institutions. They've got money to do that. But when it comes to funding the police service that they use, it doesn't make any sense. If they paid 24.5 million for the policing costs, then that's 24.5 million the Scottish government would have to put into education. It's just
like you said earlier, they're not the adults in the room at the moment, but I possibly it's a cynical sense in myself, but I do feel the Scottish government should understand that they're not working with adults at the moment. Like, you have to treat the UK government like children at the moment. So they should be covering their own backs. I don't know.
Maybe just half and half it. 12.25 million each. That's what people would do in more sensible climes, I feel. I mean, the breakdown is interesting anyway. The cost is 21 million for Police Scotland for the US presidential visit. 3.1 million for the vice president's visit. That's JD Vance when he came. That's by far the bulk of the money, 24.1 million. Could the Scottish government negotiate, like, you pay the policing, we'll pay the rest of it? I mean, who's even included this 2,000 for NHS Grampian in the cost?
Probably
what
NHS
was that for?
We spoke of this before, so probably a suite in case something did happen to Donald Trump. A presidential
We'll put some
suite.
FOIs in and we'll find out what
News to me if
that
NHS
was for.
Grampian's got free capacity.
That was good.
Hold on a second. I will lead the conversation somewhere else, but I had another interesting thing to point out.
I can't believe you think Scotland should pay for that Trump visit.
I think they should have covered the back.
Why don't we get Trump to pay?
Well, I think they should have foreseen this.
Why don't we ask the US to pay? How much money have they got? Billions, apparently. Trump's saying he's finding billions on the tariff shelf. Well, why can't we get some of that to pay for this policing bill?
You can use
Because
the
it's an
tariff
international
money from the
visit.
whiskey. I mean,
Yeah.
Does that not work?
Yeah.
Anyway, just back to what you're saying about the UK government and their behaviour at the moment. I feel like a few things we've touched on today, the Putin comments, the potential overreach into funding education in Scotland, refusing to pay this bill for a visit from the US president. It all reminds me of stuff that the previous Conservative government did. It reminds me of their attitude to Scotland. I feel like the Labour government is employing this kind of tactic, the sort of picking a fight kind of tactic, that actually it's the Scottish government that gets accused of doing the most. It does seem like a bit of a shift, you know. When we saw Keir Starmer get elected, he made sure that he had people on Downing Street with little saltires happily waving them, and he wanted, he said, you know, he was going to really include Scotland. He made a lot of visits to Scotland. I mean, my perception at the moment is that he's given up on Scotland.
Well, maybe so. If we're going back to the election, the Labour manifesto said that they would restore control over what were previously EU funds to representatives of Scotland. So pre-Brexit, the EU money would flow to Holyrood. The Scottish ministers elected to Holyrood would decide where to allocate that money. The Tories said, right, we're replacing this EU fund with the Levelling Up Fund, whatever various other funds, the Shared Prosperity Fund, loads of other titles they came up with. And we're going to have direct control over that funding. The Scottish government kicked up a fuss. They were saying, well, we need to be able to allocate the resources like we were back in the EU days, and let's not even get into the fact of how they're actually shortchanging us like mad compared to the EU days. Labour put in the manifesto, we will restore that funding to being controlled by Scottish politicians, which a fair reading of would have meant go back to what you were doing under the EU deal. All they've actually done is move control of the funding from the Levelling Up Secretary, which was Michael Gove back in the day, to the Scottish Secretary, the Scotland office. So they've kept it under UK government control. There hasn't been any reversal of actual power grabs over devolved areas. It's been very much the same playbook, just dressed up in slightly different words. It really has been quite shocking watching this Labour government's attempt to reset relations with the devolved administrations. I mean, I think they're going to pay the price in Wales. We'll see tomorrow. Crunch day, Caerphilly, which is probably not how you pronounce that either.
I think you were right.
Yeah, it sounds about right.
Oh, yeah, good to get something right for now. Again. But frankly, Labour have messed up in Wales, let's put it that way, and it's reform versus Plaid. We've got a pro-independence party who hopefully are going to win that by-election because the other choice is reform. Like, that's the position that UK Labour are putting Welsh voters and Scottish voters in. Next year, in the 2026 elections, it's going to be a pro-independence party or Reform UK. And when people are asked that question, they're going to look to pro-independence party, surely, rather than this brand of unionism that Nigel Farage is offering. Lots of union flags everywhere, which is incredibly un-British anyway. But they're trying to preserve the union from their perspective. That's what they want to do. They want the union to continue for another 300 years. Do you think putting Nigel Farage against pro-independence parties is the best way to do that? It's bonkers. It's absolutely bonkers.
Yeah, and I think there's a difference between trying to preserve the union and trying to make it look as though it's thriving. And I think Keir Starmer came into government thinking, oh, I'll do the latter. I'll try and make it look as though it's thriving. And Anna Starmer and I are working together, and he has a say in my government. And then everything hit the fan when it came down to Westminster, and he doesn't have that. He doesn't, like you say, he doesn't have the energy to do it now in Scotland. He doesn't have the energy or the time. He's fighting fires down south, and so he's given up. Like you say, he's given up in terms of Scotland. But I think it might be interesting to see on the other side of New Year, going into Holyrood 2026, where it'll look like. Is it just going to be doing the preserve the union style, or is he going to be trying to again rejuvenate the thriving narrative he was trying to put forward?
Will Scottish Labour want him anywhere near the Holyrood election campaign? I mean, if I was Anna Sarwar, I wouldn't.
Yeah.
But will you have
he's the least popular prime minister now on record. I mean, you don't want him to be walking around, I don't know, Hamilton, telling people how great everything's going to be when their energy bills have gone up despite what he said, their disability benefits are being cut. I mean, it's just hard to imagine that he could possibly be seen as an asset for the Scottish election next year.
Yeah, the change slogan doesn't work quite so well when you've had a year and a half in government and things have changed for the worse.
Decline.
But I also don't think that is it Jackie Bailey and Douglas Alexander that are leading the campaign. I don't know if they actually understand that, though. I don't know if they have the insight enough to think Keir isn't popular.
I think they do. I mean, they're smart, and they can look at the news, and I'm sure they read the policy briefings, and I'm sure they do see how detested this current government is. But the thing is, they're such kind of establishment politicians. They just swallow that feeling, and they go out there and they pretend like everything's okay. Which it's cringeworthy to watch.
Yeah. They don't have the intuition or the inventiveness to put forward something alternative.
Is trapped by his own position. You can't exactly have a Scottish Labour campaign that says we're going to do things differently in Edinburgh. We're a completely revamped team. We're going to bring so much change into government. Also, the guy running our campaign is the Scottish Secretary in London. It's like you can't have a disconnect there. And I think, you touched on in the general election, there was very much this, Anas and I work together so closely, Keir Starmer was saying. And you kind of create a paradox there, and I can't really get out of. When they fired Ian Murray, which is a surprise to everyone as Scottish Secretary, out he went. Anna Sarwar is kind of trapped because journalists ask him, were you consulted on this? If he says no, that's pretty damning. They didn't even ring the leader of Scottish Labour before they kicked out the Scottish Secretary. If he says yes, that's pretty damning. So they rang you and you agreed with getting rid of Ian Murray? He's really popular. He's been doing a great job. He's been the sole Scottish Labour MP for years. Why are you stabbing him in the back? There's no answer that Anna Sarwar can give that is good. That's why he knows that full well. He's a smart political operator, very slick. And that's why he wouldn't say a word. He just stood there like, can't comment. Because he knows there's no way that he can get out of it looking good. And that's what the UK government are doing to him on a daily basis, putting him in these situations where he's going to look bad no matter what he says.
Following on reports after E. Murray was fired, I'm pretty sure one of the key reasons he was brought back into government was because Anas was angry behind the scenes, but not in front.
Yeah, I think everyone in Scottish Labour was.
Well, of course, yeah.
Yeah, but you don't get angry about something you've been consulted on ahead of time.
Well, I think to start wrapping things up, there's one last story that I'd like us to discuss. This is the never-ending Historic Environment Scotland saga, kicked off a few weeks ago by you, Xander, who had the original story about was he their operations officer?
Yeah, operations director Craig Means. So it was the first story about him, and it does seem to have started a bit of a snowball where a lot more stories are coming out. I have to say I haven't been overly involved in the snowball because I went on holiday at an extremely inopportune moment. But it wasn't the first story ever. There have been rumblings over the summer that there's like discontent at the top of the Historic Environment Scotland. I think that's kind of what got us sniffing around it a little bit. Like the government had been pushed on the other director there was like, I can't remember the exact details of this sushi, but it was about him renting out one of the rooms at Edinburgh Castle for a private dinner. Like the Tories have been raising that in Parliament. So there was discontent, but yeah, when we found out about this racism complaint and got the documents through, we kind of knew that was going to kick things off a bit. So yeah, just to catch people up if they don't know, Craig Mearns, the director of operations, was complained about by a fellow senior member of HES after he made a couple of racist and xenophobic comments. One of them, he not allegedly, he admitted doing it, pointed at a couple of Indian tourists at Edinburgh Castle and told his colleague to look at those chocolates, which is unbelievably inappropriate.
Appalling.
And as we've literally reported, did it go live last night? This morning?
Yes.
Last night, he is also found to have called French people cheese-eating surrender monkeys, which is just, why would you do this if you're in this role? But his defense, as we understand it, has been that they're common phrases in the Navy.
I had never heard that phrase, but he used to be a captain as
Captain
well.
Faslane nuclear base.
Yeah, and it's in The Simpsons?
The cheese-eating surrender monkeys bit is in The Simpsons, isn't it?
Wild.
Yeah.
I didn't really have him down as a big Simpsons fan, but there you go. I mean,
Yeah.
it's been story after story about Historic Environment Scotland.
Yeah.
We've had lots of interest on the website and in print as well. Various other stories, including another senior person being investigated for twerking on Martin Compston at some kind of formal event. Loads
we don't know
coming
who that
on.
person is, do we? We don't know that senior member of staff.
No, I don't think so.
Unnamed as yet. We don't know the anonymous twerker.
It's very concerning. These it's a great name for like a band. I can imagine Six Music coming up next, anonymous twerker with their new
the
single.
Masked Singer.
Yeah. Wow. In all seriousness, the situation made people feel very uncomfortable. So yeah, that investigation's ongoing.
It's a ludicrous situation that he's still in post. I mean, you would have thought these investigations would have led to something. I mean, the documents that we saw had one remarkable line I was mentioning in the office earlier, where it said, like, given that Craig Mearns has admitted making the comments, we have decided on balance of probabilities that he made the comments. Just fantastic investigative work from HES. But as I understand it, Katarina Brown, the chief executive, is currently suspended. That was a rumor when I went on that inopportune holiday, and now it has been confirmed.
Yes.
They've also just appointed a new chair who's extremely well qualified.
Had they not appointed him prior to all of this, he then went on holiday.
Oh, he's on holiday as well.
He then had to come back and talk to staff.
Because the staff are very upset.
Because the staff are very upset. Because obviously this is, the whole sort of board has been blown up by this.
Yeah.
And so he had to come back, and it was one of his first sort of sit downs with staff where he had to address it and say, we're going to look at this very thoroughly and things. But that was his first week in the job, very much.
Poor guy. Because he's extremely, as I said, well qualified. I can't even remember his name now. But I remember when they brought him in, he's former head of like Scottish museums. He's really been in the industry for decades, thinks he's got this plum nice new job at the head of Historic Environment Scotland, and then just as he walks in the door, everything falls to pieces. So don't envy him.
No, it's a concerning story, because these are people who they're responsible for our built environment, these important pieces of Scottish heritage. That should be their focus, and maintaining those sites, rather than these insane infighting stories and people briefing against each other, terrible instances of racism. It's hard to defend, and I certainly wouldn't want to be in their comms officer's shoes trying to do that at the moment. Well, thank you so much for listening to us talk about the news today. We will be back on Friday, and we should have a special guest in to interview, so you should keep an eye out on that. I'm not going to say who it is in case there are further train delays, which did cancel another interview earlier in the week.
And our special guest is Laura Pollock.
Yeah, it's Laura Pollock, everyone! Yay! It's round of applause. So yeah, thank you so much. As you, I'm sure, are already subscribed, thank you for subscribing. But on the off chance that you are not, remember you can go to thenational.scot/subscribe to take out a subscription for just £1 for 3 months. We also offer a student's subscription deal, which you can access via Student Bean, which we were at a university yesterday. I was saying I'm too old to really know how the Student Bean website works. And Xander said, I think it's a card, isn't it? So
I still think it is a card.
I don't think it is a card.
I think I've
not,
seen a
it's
card
not.
with beans on it.
It's not
like
a card.
baked beans.
Baked beans? I don't think it's anything to do with baked beans.
No,
anyway, regardless of whether it's anything to do with baked beans, you are very much invited to take out a student subscription with the National. $9.99 a year for 3 or 4 years, depending on the length of your degree. Great deal, by far our cheapest subscription offer. So make sure you take advantage of that. And thank you so much to our wonderful guests for joining me today. Sorry you missed PMQs. I'm sure you're absolutely devastated.
Heartbroken.
You can watch it on catch up.
Watch it on catch up. Okay, thank you so much. See you again next time.